Okay, guys, part two. Buckle up, Buttercup, because this gets deep. Okay, so now she then graduated on to the DON office. So now she's the director of nursing. She runs the nurses run off her license at this point. So she got the little position and we cool or whatever. So I'm still talking to her husband would come up there time for time. He would sit in the office with her or whatever. And she would be like so irritated with him. So one day he was in there and he laughed. I go in there and say, "Hey John, how you doing?" Whatever the case may be. He laughed. He's a very handsome dude, tall, loved the Lakers, and he loved his kids dearly, no doubt about that. But and I know that he felt guilty because he did so much for. Oh, sorry guys, my hand is turning. Because he had did so much for her for them to have been separated. It was just, yeah. And so I used to be like, why you don't you? And one day I asked her like, why you don't never want to get back with Trey? She was like, girl, no. He has a long, a long, how do I say, volleyball, but just to take the last word. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, one is longer than the other. I was like, girl. So one day because I don't want to skip anything. Okay, so one day I came in she came in and she came in the office, and she was like looking, different, a little different, like she had been partying. So I was like, "What's up, girl? What you been doing?" She was like, "Mariah." She was like, "My neighbors across the street came over and we were doing Scarface all night." And I looked at her. I said, "Well, why are you doing that?" I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Mariah," she said, "I live such a sheltered life. I want to experience everything. And I want my kids to know all walks of life." Because she said I was sheltered and I didn't know all walks of life. So I understood where she was coming from. Like I said, she was down to earth. That was my girl. And so I was like, why? So I asked her, I said, so why? I said, why you jump to that? I said, that's such a leap. I said, why don't you just, get you a little broccoli, and mind your business? She was like, what? And I was like, yeah. She was like, oh, okay. What's up? So I was like, okay, she was like, okay, tomorrow. I said, okay, tomorrow I'll do your woo to hook you up and you be good. So that next day came, whatever the case happened, boom, bam, boom, right? Right. So she called me that night. I told you she was silly. So she called me that night, and I answered the phone. I said, hello. All I heard was giggling, chuckling. I said, hey, girl, what's up? She was like, Mariah. She's like, oh my God, I'm in the bathroom. I said, girl, you in the bathroom in the house with your kids? She was like, yeah, girl, I'm in here, but I'm blowing it out the window. I'm not blowing it out the window. Oh my God. Da, da, da. So she was, cool, which like keep me so calm, so relaxed. She's like, thank you, Mariah. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So I was like, okay, bet, no problem. So about 2, 3 days later came up and she's like, damn, Mariah, I'm done with that, whatever you gave me. She's like, how do I get some more? And I was like, damn, for one, her position, I didn't really want, she was the head of the fucking thing. She ran that building. So I was like, damn, shit. I said, girl, well, fuck. I said, she was like, just tell me. I'm like, girl, no. She was like, just give me I want to do it myself. Just tell me. And I was like, it's somebody to work here. And she was like, who? I was like, girl, I ain't gonna tell you. Ain't nobody gonna trust you like that. Like, I know you with the shit. Because I know what you do. But, ain't nobody gonna be really fucking with you like that. So that's gonna be hard for me to turn you on. She's like, no. I said, girl, well, let me see what I can do, right? So this particular dude worked in the kitchen. So I said, hey, his name was David Oliveira. I said, hey, David, what's up? He was like, what's up, Mariah? We were cool. And I was like, hey, I need, somebody up here want to get some woo-woo. Is it okay, if I go ahead and give you a number and fly? So he's like, who? So I'm looking like, fuck. I'm like, it's the DOE. And he was like, hell no, I ain't woo-woo. I said, no, bro. I said, she good. I explained the situation. I was like, she good. You be all right. Ain't gonna be no, he was like, nah, man, I don't trust that. Because he was a little vadio, on set, And so, he was like, nah, man, Mariah. I said, come on, bro. I said, she's straight. I whoop, whoop, whoop. He was like, okay. So I told her the name. I said, okay, I'll give you the name. Because I didn't want to be, I just wanted her to do her own thing. I didn't want to be, even though I still didn't want to. So long story short, they swapped numbers. Now she on that broccoli and we chilling. Everybody chilling, ain't no big deal. So one day cause she, when I say she was cool, bro, she was so cool. Like, she ended up getting real. She got real close with the CNAs. She ended up, one of her best friends was a CNA at the time. She made a CNA, and she was radio too, like, gang gang too. But that she came real close with her, right? Now this little lady, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, wow, girl, you show so. And then she would do things like she would call me officer. She'd be like, Mariah, she's like, man, when she get into it with him. So one day she called me in there, and her daughter was sitting in the chair over there, and I was in there. She was like, dang, Mariah, you know somebody that I can get rid of my husband with? I was like, girl, I'm like, you just stop that bull crap. Stop all that, girl. Yeah, but that's a bull crap. You don't get a husband. Why? I said, you need to be trying to get back. She was like, no. She looked at her daughter. She was like, yeah, huh? Your dad is woo. The daughter was like, and I'm like, girl, whatever. I didn't pay no attention to it, y'all. I promise. I didn't think this lady was serious. Not even did much. But as time progressed and things got deeper, I'm like, yeah, this lady right here is with the okay, let's go. So she ended up becoming good friends with the girl, and her and the dude ended up jumping into like I don't know if it's a relationship. I know she one day she came in, she had hickeys everywhere. I was like, girl, who did that? And she was like, I was like, ooh. I said, what? She was like, yeah, girl. I'm like, she said, yeah. I said, oh, shit. Okay, hey, do your thing, boo. You got the hookup now, bitch. We cool. So, one day, I was doing my daughter's prom. So, she was helping me get things together. So, she told me to come to her house, whatever. So, we was sitting down, we was looking at dresses and the little trinklets and all that stuff. She told me she would get the trinklets and stuff for my daughter's prom. I just would buy them. So, we was just looking over stuff, me, her, and her daughter. So, so the kid's father was there to pick the little boy up for basketball from the house, because he still lived there. They was just separated, but majority of his time was spent in Riverside with the lady he did the affair with, right? But he would be there too because his children was there. They like shared the house basically, but he was still gone majority of the time. And so he came to get the boy for the basketball, and on his way out he had bumped into my car. It was a little scratch, nothing big. He came in, whoop, whoop, whoop. He said, just tell Nikki how much it costs, and I'll pay for it. Me, myself, I didn't even care because it wasn't nothing I could, and it would have been good. I wasn't tripping like that. I ain't that type of person. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I blew that shit off. So I was like, went on home and did my thing. So about a week later, I came in the office. She was like, Mary, did you ever get the estimate on your car? I was like, no. Why? She was like, girl, make him pay. Go get an estimate, bring me the receipt, and he gonna pay you. So what I do, go get that estimate. It was $250. Gave her the receipt. Boom, I had my money right then and there. I said, okay, bet. Whatever. She was mad, anything, just So that wasn't the first time she asked me that I know anybody that would take care of her husband. That wasn't her first time asking me that. She asked me that about 4 or 5 times. I never believed her. So one day she asked me, I said, girl, she asked me in the hall, I said, girl, you would never, no, we was in her office. And I said, girl, you would never make it. I said, you would be somebody's girlfriend, and yeah, girl, you don't want that life. She's like, no, Mariah, I'm serious. Like, I know how to act. And I'm like, what? She was like, yeah, I am dead serious. I'm like, girl, stop playing. I said, you ain't going to even make it past go in that situation because you ain't with that life. You ain't built like that. You guys, it's about the end, and I'll be right back for part 3. Hold on.